Okay. Seem to be live. Seem to be live here. Ooh, it's raining bad out there. It is raining really hard out there. There's a couple people in here. As I say in every stream, can everybody see me, hear me? I know, at least hear me, because I know my video might be a little bit choppy because it's pouring outside. So I don't know if that's affecting the internet or not. It's like, if I'm here, it's like showing up kind of crazy, but yeah, wow, it is really raining out there. But if everyone can hear me, see me, good. Maybe if anybody's in here, then we will progress with the stream. Hopefully everything goes well. Wow, I can't stop talking about how hard it's raining out there. I mean, I know it's like summer, and that's supposed to happen here in Orlando, but wow, it is really raining bad. Anyways, for the one person who's in here, how's it going? Welcome to tonight's little stream. Nothing crazy. Just really want to talk about announcements. Also, for those who have been to the streams, you might notice a little bit of a difference. I keep looking off to the right. That's because I have a new webcam hooked up. I don't know if it's looking any better or not. For those who've been in the past streams, I was using my Mac webcam, and now I have a separate webcam, but it's on the side here. So yes, hopefully that looks good. So if you see me keep looking over to the right, that's not because I don't want to look at you. It's because I'm trying to read the chat here. So see some people already in here. Hello, everybody. What's going on? What's going on, y'all? Yeah, we're going to talk about who you're going to call. We're going to talk about Ghostbusters, of course. Hyped for Frozen Empire. Yeah, we're definitely going to talk about Frozen Empire, as well as Monstros 2 coming to Hollywood, as it says in the title. And post Dark Universe. We're going to talk about Dark Universe. I'm excited. Y'all know. But yeah, we're going to talk about Dark Universe and dive into some details about that. Let me actually let me get this all set up, at least on my end, at least for the Dark Universe side. But how's everybody's night going? What do we think about Ghostbusters coming to HHN? Hopefully it sounds good. It is pouring out there. Anyway, I'll stop saying it. But what do we think about Ghostbusters coming to HHN while I pull up? I don't want to look at Hotel. I want to look at Dark Universe. If we can find a Dark Universe. There we go. Got the website pulled up. The rain is nonstop, Queso Quackers. Yeah. Are you in the area? Is it like, because I think it's like all through Florida. It's like really ripping through here. So excited for Ghostbusters. I'm very excited for Ghostbusters. Even though I wasn't the biggest fan of Frozen Empire, the film, I was just very excited for the house. Even though I don't hate Frozen Empire. I don't like even really dislike it. I did overall enjoy it. Like I came out going, yeah, this was a good time. There were things that I definitely was like, yes, this I'm for sure seeing in a haunted house if it does ever come to horror nights. And I want to watch it again, actually, with that lens. Rewatch it and rewatch clips and be like, okay, what are we gonna see in here? Very excited. The trailer was amazing. So I know there have been some like kind of off and on opinions about the trailer. Like some folks don't really like it. Some folks really do like it. I thought it was cool. I liked funny. I liked the Quiet Place trailer a lot, and I like this one too. I think they're kind of very similar in tone. Like I don't think they're like too out there. It feels like they're very much in line with each other and in line with that first video. So I think we're seeing a connective tissue going from one property, one announcement to the other, which I like. I like when they do that. Pre and post my conceptions of Effie as a house didn't change, which is good. Is in the Frozen atmosphere. It's going to be the highlight. Yeah, I definitely also think the info we got makes the announcement way more interesting. Yeah, I think that's the same thing with A Quiet Place, and I think that's what comes with these houses, right? We can talk about what we think might come or how we think it's going to be executed, but once we actually get that information, the gears start turning and you're like, okay, what can we actually see? Or like, it's fun when you watch the movie then after something is announced. Like I need to rewatch A Quiet Place. I saw the first one. I don't think I saw the second one. Or if I did, it was a long time. It was when the movie came out. So like 3 years ago. But I need to rewatch those, and I'm going to rewatch them with the lens of how could this be brought to life in Horror Nights, which is really cool. Give me Ecto Cooler. Chris, I know you've been the champion for Ecto Cooler at the event, and yes, I would love for Ecto Cooler to be at the event in some sense. Maybe a slushie or some kind of drink that involves Ecto Cooler, like a mixed drink, something they can have non-alcoholic and alcoholic, because they tend to do that when it comes to properties that might attract kids or teenagers. And for those of us, I've said it before, I would like more non-alcoholic drinks at the event. I don't drink, even though I can. I don't really have much interest in it, and Horror Nights drinks especially. I like the non-alcoholic drinks, tend to like those more. I think they're more interesting. I think there's more to do with them. I think Frozen Empire, the Momkin Solo Adaru, yeah. No, definitely. She was definitely the star of the show in the trailer. Also, I think Frozen Empire will be a better house than film and will surprise many. I think this will happen I think this is going to be like an Exorcist situation where it's going to be house over movie in terms of most people's enjoyment. Even though funny enough, I kind of enjoyed Exorcist Believer about the same that I enjoyed Frozen Empire. Like, I liked them both. I think they were both highlights. They weren't my favorite movies in each series, but as far as new adaptations go, they're not bad. They're a good time. They're enjoyable. And I liked the House Exorcist Believer a lot last year. So I like the heroic vibe for both the 2019 trailer and this trailer. Yeah, it definitely felt more on the like comedic edge. It wasn't as scary. For those who have seen the movie, and there's probably going to be some spoilers in this stream a little bit. I'm not going to go into crazy like plot spoilers, just maybe like some things we could be seeing in the house. I know a lot of people haven't seen Frozen Empire, so I'm not going to go too in depth. But the scene where we see the characters freezing up, standing there on the stairwell, freezing up, is a lot like what you see in the movie. So I like that we kind of see that translated. Like, it's very much in line with the big montage scene they have in the movie, where it's very similar looking. And they show it in the trailers too, so it's not really a spoiler. Where you see like the Ferris wheel go under, like it's a lot like that. I want Slimer, Librarian, Mini Puffs. I think you're going to get all of those. Slimer has been all but pretty much confirmed, and I'm guessing the Mini Puffs are going to be in there. I'm guessing also like Krampus, like the gingerbread and Krampus. At least the poster is good. Yeah, so let's pop over to that poster. I know my camera is probably being really weird, so we're going to hop over to the poster, and we'll talk. So yeah, this is the artwork. This is the artwork for Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. It's what we see for the key art. It's what we also see on some of the merch that's in the park. And I love it. I mean, it's very simple. It's very much like in line with I like the artwork for the merch a little more because it has the universal arch, and I'm a sucker for that. I love when they did that for Stranger Things, both times. And I like that they're doing that here, kind of like the Ghostbusters are invading Universal. I think that's really cool. I love when they do stuff like that. So I wish they would have done that for the key art. Maybe it was sort of a Sony request. They were like, hey, we don't want you to, we have certain things we want you to do and certain things we want you to include. But either way, I do like what we're seeing here with the artwork. So yeah, definitely excited for Frozen Empire. Really curious as to what we can see. And I'm curious, I know Chris talking about Ecto Cooler. I'm curious of what we will see in terms of cross branding or like Horror Nights, like how Horror Nights is going to bring this to life outside of the haunted house. Are we going to see maybe this as the Cabana Bay experience? I think it'd be kind of cool doing like a throwback to Ghostbusters with some of the props from the past tribute store or from the previous house or something like that, like making that kind of the experience, as well as the food, obviously, and the merch, because Ghostbusters is such a big property that they love to merchandise and put food out and do all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I'm not surprised that could be what we're seeing here. And yeah, I'm just very curious. And if y'all have any ideas of what you think we might see at the event outside of just the house, I'd love to see it in the chat, because it's something that I'm very curious. A Quiet Place, I don't think we're going to see much, but I think definitely Ghostbusters will be the IP property that does this the best. Anyway, I know the internet is probably going nuts, so maybe we keep this a quick stream to avoid any potential issues. But anyway, yeah. So I think Ghostbusters is just very exciting. I did a video of it last night. I did talk about most of my opinions on it. But yeah, I'm curious. Slimer popcorn bucket. Yeah, they went really hard with the popcorn buckets for Frozen Empire just in the theaters. They had they had a Slimer bucket. They had the Ghost Trap bucket. I know for the last one they had an Ecto 1 bucket, which I think an Ecto 1 bucket I think would be the coolest in my opinion. Although the Ghost Trap would be neat as well. Something that you can get that might like interact like the Chucky one last year would really validate having that be bought. There's a scene from the movie where something happens with the Ecto 1. And that's about as far as I'm going to go. For those who know, you know, I think that would be a really cool effect on a popcorn bucket. It's something with lights and sounds and stuff. And I think it would be really cool if you had like the Chucky bucket, very similar to what the Chucky bucket did last year. I think it'd be cool if you could do that with the Ecto 1 and make a cool popcorn bucket out of that. But yeah, I think they're going to go hard with the merch. Although I don't think they're going to go that hard. Like with Stranger Things last year, I think it's going to be a little different because Stranger Things, and who's to say, right? We don't know this. This is just throwing out ideas. But what it seems like with the announcement and with what we've already gotten with the rollout and what we've seen for the summer in the tribute store and the other merchandise, they're really leaning on third-party stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of third-party stuff, a lot of the stuff we're seeing in the summer tribute store available for Halloween Horror Nights, and a couple exclusive items for Horror Nights. I'm curious what the facade for Orlando would be. Here in Hollywood, we have our own theories. Yeah, so what it looks like, because Murdy has confirmed this is in the location that Chucky was last year. So he said this on Twitter. So this is not a speculation. It is a truth. So we can look at that location and go, what are we thinking? Well, a lot of people I understand in Hollywood, the idea is that it might be the bookstore, which I would love for it to be the bookstore, because I think that's one of the best set pieces we've seen, especially within this movie. Although they also mentioned the firehouse, like going into the firehouse, and then you'll experience all this stuff. So maybe in Orlando we see a frozen firehouse. I know there's a comment here about things getting very cold. Like I think a really cool frozen firehouse, almost like a Deadman's Pier effect with a lot of flocking and some glaciers and stuff like that, would be really cool to see as our facade here in Orlando, because my guess is that this is going to be in a soundstage. The last house was in a soundstage. So very curious to see where they go with the facade here. But my guess is that it'll either be one of those two. It'll be the bookstore like Hollywood, or it'll be the firehouse. So we'll have to see about that one. Glad the Busters are here to stay in Orlando. The definitive thing to do would have a ride. Yeah, for sure. I think a ride would be ultimate, or a show, or like another like permanent fixture. Although we've seen them in Sensational, we've seen them in the tribute store. We're going to see them in the parade coming soon, and of course at Horror Nights. So it seems like the Ghostbusters are kind of coming back into Universal. So maybe in the future we get some kind of tie-in, depending on what Sony wants to do, what Universal wants to do. I would love to see a looming scene with the big bad in the final scenes of the house. Yeah, so my guess is that they're going to portray Garaka through stilts. That would be my guess, considering just the kind of lanky nature of this character. I mean, this character is very tall, but also like very much in the sense of like the tall ghost we saw from the last house, done through stilts. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see something very similar, or maybe portrayed through a puppet, kind of like maybe almost like the Mind Flayer from Stranger Things a couple years back, doing it like that way, because I think the one thing I'm questioning is the horns, because those look very big and would be very taxing, I'm guessing, on a performer. Obviously, maybe it's done some kind of like with some puppetry mixing in with some performer work for a more elaborate scene. But yeah, I'm very curious because they're really leaning in on Garaka being a big part of this house. Not a whole big part of the movie for a whole lot of time. Like Garaka is the villain of the movie, but it takes a lot of buildup to get to that point where Garaka is revealed. So I wonder if that'll be the house or if it's going to be like Stranger Things where we're going to see Garaka, like just keeps coming out left and right, like how Vecna did. I want some s'mores treats. Yes, I'm sure we'll get some s'mores items, whether it be, just like some s'mores, something involving the marshmallow and the marshmallow men. I wish they would bring back the donuts they had for 29 and 20. The last time they did Ghostbusters, which was like these pumpkin donuts with the green slime. When they did that, they weren't like up there yet with the food. Like they were encroaching on their like big food renaissance in the early 30s. But I think now they're at the point where they've nailed the food thing. So I'm really excited to see what they could do. Hoping for awesome frost scenes. Yep, I think that's definitely going to be a big part. They mentioned rivers of ice in the more elaborate press release. I put a picture up here with a description for those who wanted to read. This was an updated description because the description they put with the video is not the same description as the one they later put up with the key art, which I that's really interesting. But either way, yeah, for sure. Also, yes, so we're going to talk about this in a second. The Monstros podcast posted today was my favorite. The story was so good and done better. Yeah, I think they definitely elevated the what's now called the Echoes of the Fog. Was previously the Hunted Tales, which was the lore podcast, which for any of you who haven't listened, the Monstros of Latin America for Orlando podcast has dropped on, I think it's just Halloween Horror Nights YouTube page or podcast apps. So go check that out if you haven't already, and get a little bit of the lore because it is a little different, very, very different than, I wouldn't say very different, but slightly different than what we see in Hollywood. There are some added characters in there that I think will be really curious if they make their way into our house. But podcast was great. I really like in the new podcast they have the actual text, so if you don't want to listen to it, if you just want to read it, you can, which is cool. It adds more of an audio visual experience than just having the sound. I might be wrong, but doesn't Garaka move by floating? I believe so. I believe that Garaka does. I don't really remember. Yeah, I guess it makes sense because Garaka doesn't really like walk because it's kind of like a ghost entity. It's like how most ghosts are in the series. So yeah, I would imagine. I don't think the Garaka would move very much unless it's like maybe they do. If they do stilts, because I know with stilts in other houses, like I know in Hollywood they have a really specific thing about like cloth and how it has to kind of tie in with the stilts, the costume. So maybe they use that if they're going to have a couple other scares. But I'm guessing if they're going to have a big scene with Garaka, like you see in the movie, they would do it puppet style, maybe mixed with some performer work. Murdy sent over the props. Yeah, so I don't know. Has anyone confirmed this? I don't know if this is just something that's kind of being talked about or if it's something that was official, unofficial, that was just kind of thrown around there. But yeah, it makes sense with them to be doing, them to be doing the same monsters here. I'm guessing everything pretty much but the La Muerte stuff. I'm guessing they would keep that because La Muerte's in the sequel house, which we can pivot over to in a second. But yeah, I'm curious if that's true. If that's true, I can't wait to see the animatronic. If that's something they were willing to ship over, the La Lechuza animatronic, which was, from what I've heard, was a highlight. Yeah, if I want the La Lechuza animatronic, yeah, exactly. To see the animatronic come back. Yeah, stilts with flowing fabric, and then also fabric in a full suit. I think it would just be different for different scenes. I think if you were to have some pop out scares, I don't think they go as elaborate with, tech and things like that. But I think definitely like if they were to do a big scene, like I imagine if they were to do a scene like the Mind Flayer, just because I'm thinking about it, or even like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man scene from the first one, where it's kind of the big grand finale before you leave the house. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what's going on. Yeah. So, I think Murdy said he gave them what they need. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't see if Murdy said anything official or not. I know people have been talking about it, like the potential of them bringing over certain things. over to Orlando from Hollywood. And my guess is that it's, again, mostly costumes or things that have specifically to do that they can't like reuse in Monstros 2, because Monstros 2 is keeping a lot of the same stuff. So we could pivot over to Monstros 2, and then we could keep talking about Ghostbusters if we would like. But let's pivot to Monstros 2, because I have not talked about this in a video. I had a video ready for this, and then the Ghostbusters announcement happened, so it kind of threw me off because I was out on Tuesday, and so I wasn't like able to get a video out on Tuesday, and I started working on it, and then Ghostbusters got announced. So it's just sometimes it happens. But anyways, let's talk about Monstros 2, The Nightmares of Latin America, featuring some new characters, some old characters. We have La Muerte back, of course, being sort of like the master of ceremonies, the narrator, if you will, for this house. And then we have, let's see, do we have names here? I think it's El Charro, right? For this guy here, behind Muerte. We have El Cucuy on the other side. I know that. And then El Cadejo, as described by Horror Nights. Obviously, I know some of them go by other names, but this sort of wolf creature here. But yes, we have some new characters, new and old, because El Cucuy had a house back in 2013, the Danny Trejo version, which was quite a bit different than this version. And then also El Pueblo del Terror, the scare zone from 2022, which had all three of these characters in it. So, and was proved to be kind of like the inspiration for the Monstros houses of recent. So yeah, very interesting. Let's see. So John Murdy confirmed a couple things. First thing, location is in the Parisian Courtyard, same location. And the Cemetery of the Lost, it's the same facade. It's the same exact facade, same exact location. It's just a different side of it, which I like this. I like that they're continuing the story. Maybe if we would have seen another facade, or at least a different location, I think it would have been interesting. But I guess if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of thing. It seemed to work very well in Hollywood. Obviously, we're getting it here in Orlando, so that must mean something. And then we have, of course, some of the same characters coming back. So yeah, I think this is cool. So same facade, same location. John Murdy also saying that there was already a sequel. The Monstros was already planned to be a series, which totally understand. Makes sense, because I remember last year we were talking about the potential of it being a La Lechuza house, just La Lechuza only. And then it evolved into Monstros, which makes me think, oh, they're trying to do an anthology thing. Maybe they have more than one idea in mind. So totally not surprised we're seeing another set of Monstros. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's more after this, but because he doesn't say that it's not, based on my read of this, I don't see that it's not the end, but I also don't see that it is the end, So very curious. Same thing, facade's the same. And we have a few more. We have the Dark Horseman, El Chahro. I know there's some things in the chat about that, so we'll dive into that in a second. We have the Devil's Dog, El Cadejo, and then the Boogeyman, El Cucuy. So my guess is that at Midsummer Scream, we're going to get more details, at least for how these characters are going to work. What's the backstory, the version that they're going with for Hollywood, because obviously they have their own backstories, but the versions are different. They do kind of make some modifications. They do change it up a little bit. Although I was kind of surprised that Orlando kept mostly the same, like at least in some of the lore. They didn't really dive into the lore within the podcast of like behind the characters, but some of the signifiers, Elsie Bone's whistle, the crying babies for Tlahuepuchi, like all that stuff is all the same for from Hollywood to Orlando. So yeah, that's what we got. And then I mentioned before El Pueblo de Terra, yes, that being a sort of an origin of design, but they're all going to get redesigned. So I think that's kind of cool that they're doing something new and exciting all around. So let's hop to the chat, because I know there's a lot of thoughts on this. Also, Chico Soul, what's going on? I know you said what's up earlier, so I wanted to say hello. So excited for this, so hyped. Monstros is going to be badass. Love the Latin representation. Yeah, I think that's going to be a big factor this year in both Orlando and Hollywood. I think we're going to get a lot of Latin American representation between houses, potential zones. We'll talk about that in a moment here too, because Horror Night Nightmares dropped a new map, and I haven't, again, it all planned to be in this video with Monstros, and then I never got to it. Well, kind of had Ghostbusters was on my mind first. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a moment. But yes, lots of Latin American representation happening, both Hollywood and Orlando. Hollywood, it's kind of the place for it, but Orlando also is starting to get into it, which I'm guessing is going to bleed into the food. I think we're going to get a lot of Latin American food this year, and merchandise, and I think that's definitely going to be a big part of the event this year. El Chajaro is like the devil's debt collector. I know there's some more. He plays tricks on travelers, tries to trick you into taking gold that he offered you in return. He takes your soul. So yeah, when I was reading about this character, was what I was reading. So makes sense that that's kind of the story. I didn't know if that was the, I know stories range from place to place. Sorry, my chair is really squeaky there. Stories range from region to region, wherever they come from. Yeah, it's cool to see that. There better be another owl on the facade. Maybe it would probably have to be a hidden thing, because from what you could see, the facade looks very, I don't want to say it doesn't look detailed, but it looks very clean. Like that's the vibe I'm getting right now. So I'm sure they'll weather it down, they'll wear it down. But yeah, so sure, lots of owls. Talking about the facade. Let's see. Ghostbusters, and there's some comments here about Ghostbusters. We can hop back to Ghostbusters in a moment, but also Pueblo del Terror was like the Avengers. Yeah, definitely. It was just basically the big Latin American scare zone, which looking at it is almost like, I feel like for Orlando folks, this is almost like their version of a Slaughter Cinema, right? Where it's like, it's a thing that has a bunch of mini ideas in it that then can become houses or zones in the future, if y'all catch my drift. Because it's not in Slaughter Cinema like the same kind of theming, but it's that kind of idea where it can be a spawn point for more haunted house concepts, more ideas into future years. That's why I was kind of surprised that they did this so early. I figured they would wait maybe to do another Monstros house, like maybe do individual houses, like maybe an El Cucuy house, like another El Cucuy house, or maybe like this Chajaro guy, like maybe like some different stuff, right? But not doing just a straight up Monstros anthology right away. But you never know what the creative process is, and I mean, this seems to be one of two originals here in the at the event, so very curious. Let's see. El Chajaro is one of my most anticipated. Yeah, for sure. I'm hyped for you. I'm glad that you're excited for this. I know a lot of folks are really excited for this, and I mean, I'm excited to see the original Monstros come to Florida. So it's going to be good all around for Latin America. Typically don't agree with Zombie Chris, but he's spot on with Ghostbusters and the movie The Trash Merch. So for me, I liked the merch. I know a lot of people don't. And I know a lot of people don't like the merch in general. And I know for me, I think a lot of the merch is fine, but it's not stuff that I'm necessarily going out and buying personally. I got one shirt, and it was the main kind of like punky, like not the orange shirt, like not that design, but it was the one they did after that. It was like the one with the big skull on it. I like that design. I know a lot of people don't like it, and I know a lot of people don't really like the IP merch this year, which is okay. It is, and it is also preview merch. So hopefully they come out with some stuff that's more better off when the event happens. But I know a lot of folks are not liking it. And for me, I can't say it's my favorite merch either, because I haven't bought really any of it. And I haven't really felt the need, I haven't been I don't feel the need to go out and buy any of that merch. Right. I know some people have been, and it's great, but I know for me, I'm like, it's cool. Like if it was a discount thing and I liked the houses, like if I found a Quiet Place shirt on sale at the end of the event and I liked the house, sure, I might go for it. HHN could do an amazing house inspired by Japanese horror legends. Yeah, I think that's something we've really talked a lot about, in the past few years. I feel like I've been every year, I feel like, is there going to be a Japanese house? Is there going to be a Japanese house? And I would love to see it. I don't know. Maybe there's just not really a big market for it right now. big enough, I should say, for them to really go for it. Because I know we want it, but I don't know, because I feel like Monstros for me was one of those things. Like, obviously, Latin American monsters have been super successful in Hollywood, but I think that's been kind of that buildup of like they had La Llorona and El Cucuy in the past, and then they kind of brought them back a couple years ago, and they've been kind of building that sort of reputation for being the place for Latin American monsters. And then Florida seeing that, and they're like, well, that's successful. Let's hop on that ourselves. So maybe things come in waves when it comes to Horror Nights. IPs come in waves. Original concepts come in waves. I'm sure this Monstros thing is a wave. It's a, Latin American monsters. They do it real hard for a couple years. Then they kind of fizzle out, or they stop and then they bring it back. Or I think the same thing's kind of happening right now with the Universal monsters. I think as much as many people love them, including myself, it's been 5 years since 6 years since we've gotten the first Monsters house in Hollywood, 5 years in Orlando. So we've seen the monsters consecutively for half a decade now. So it's thinking about like, okay, when are we going to have that sort of fizzle out? And I think it has kind of been fizzling out from last year. Even though Monsters Unmasked was my favorite, I think maybe this year, and once Epic Universe opens for sure, I think the monsters are going to kind of fizzle out of HHN for a little while. Maybe be brought back at 35 or 40 or like event anniversary years. But I know, Chris, you're very outspoken about monsters. So, yeah, I know that it's very much something that I think, like I said, I think Monsters played its role, was successful in bringing back these characters, were good houses, all around, like pretty fair quality houses. I don't think one of them was bad. I don't think there was a bad Monsters house. And then also getting people hyped for Epic Universe, getting people hyped for this, like getting people to get the idea of monsters internally to be like, oh shoot, I'm going to go visit Dark Universe and buy a ticket, which it did its job. So I think once Dark Universe comes and takes its place in Orlando, maybe we'll start to see the merch, or not the merch, the monsters sort of make their way. Hollywood did make a scare zone for Japanese. Yes, this is what I meant when I was kind of like, it was kind of the beginning, I think, of people talking about Japanese presence at Horror Nights, is when they had that scare zone in, what was that, 2019 or 2018. And then I feel like ever since then, people have been like, why don't we do a Japanese house? Why don't we do a Spirits and Demons of the East house? Or we do just general Japanese folklore. So, and I know last year it was talked about potentially, but who knows? One of these years, I'm sure we'll get it. Just like we've been waiting on other stuff that happened. Especially original stuff, I feel like is more likely to happen sooner rather than later, because it's original. You don't have to worry about, I'm trying to get a big IP to sign onto my thing and maybe they don't want to do it. How's like Vikings Undead based on Nordic mythology? I think you're kind of cooking here, and I really want to see some Nordic mythology in the museum house this year. Love the monsters, but I like them more spread out. I kind of agree with you. I would like the monsters not, because I feel like monsters are kind of a shoe-in at this point. It's like Blumhouse is also kind of a shoe-in. Like both of those, I'm like, you're looking at the event, at the beginning of the year, and you're like, okay, it's probably gonna have a monsters house. You're probably gonna have some kind of Blumhouse presence at this point, considering we've gone 3 years or 2 to 3 years with that exact formula. You're like, okay, so out of our 4 to 5 IPs, 2 of them are already kind of, set in stone because of Blumhouse and Monsters. Wish I could have seen the Monsters Legends Collide house. That house was a lot of fun. I didn't like it as much as other people did. I know a lot of people loved it. A lot of people said that was their favorite house of that event. Can't say, it was like kind of in the middle of my list of that event, in my opinion. It was not my favorite house, but I do think it was good, and I think it was well designed. I do miss that house, and it was very scary. I'm hoping that TCM speculation is just false. I think at this point, unfortunately, if you're not hoping for that, I think it's kind of, I don't want to say it's set in stone because obviously nothing's confirmed yet, but we're at that point in the season where most of the stuff you see on the speculation map is pretty much locked in. It's just a question of what's the specifics of it. Like Ghostbusters, for example, we knew, the idea of Ghostbusters coming was not new, but it was like, what version do they do? That's the curiosity, and that's what I like. I like going, well, what do we see? And TCM, considering Six Flags, I know I mentioned Six Flags in the community post for this live stream. We could talk about the Six Flags announcement, but obviously, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is going to that park, although it's not the Hollywood park. From what I've read from Variety, they said that it's only going to I think it's New Jersey. It's Great Adventure, wherever that park is. So, yeah, I'm curious to see. I know y'all get Texas Chainsaw Massacre like every other year, so I understand that one. Yeah, talking about Hollywood weekend rumors. Yeah, but I think it's just. Yeah, I think that's the question is how do you continue doing this and make it interesting? It's a lot like Halloween. Because I feel like Hollywood, y'all do Halloween all the time. Halloween, Exorcist, and Texas Chainsaw. Really, Texas Chainsaw and Halloween more. Because y'all have done that house like back to back, pretty close together. Orlando has only had Texas Chainsaw. They've had Texas Chainsaw 3 times, but twice in the last 10 years. So it's still pretty recent for Orlando too, but I know y'all have gotten it more because I know they had it, y'all had it in 2021. So, yeah, so let's I want to move to this map just because I want to talk about scare zones because that's something that like all the houses are pretty much, I feel like are pretty much locked in, are pretty much exactly what we're thinking they're going to be. If we don't already know, we have 4 out of 8 houses confirmed for Hollywood, Quiet Place, Ghostbusters, Monstros 2, and Dead Exposure. And we have 8 houses, all but 2 IPs composed or confirmed. I don't want to say composed, confirmed for Orlando. So, but what we don't really know is scare zones. So let's pop in real quick and talk about some scare zones. We'll pop over to Hollywood and talk about scare zones there too. But yeah, hold on, let's see. I know there's some comments here. So before we go into scare zones, I want to talk about some of these comments. I wonder who will be the icon. That is the mystery. Do we get an icon? Are we getting a new icon related to Otis and whatever lies underneath Universal? Otis, for those who don't know, is the sort of gate monster they put in all the trailers. The Ghostbusters trailer, Quiet Place, all had that Otis, named Otis. Do we continue with this, or is the icon happening, or is the icon somewhere else? That's the big question. I honestly can't tell you because we don't really know, and I feel like everything's all in the air for that one. I'm waiting to see what will come for Six Flags Great America. So I know Texas Chainsaw Massacre, from what I understand, is confirmed for Six Flags Great America. And then I don't know what other selection, but for all of the Six Flags parks, or not all of them, but for the general announcement, Conjuring, Saw, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Army of the Dead, Stranger Things, and Trick or Treat. So any number of those. I don't know what the official like ratio is for each park. I'm guessing it's like 2 to 3 of those big IPs. But I think Great America and Magic Mountain are going to get the most of the IPs. So I don't know. I'm not a Six Flags channel. I just know what I read on the basic sort of press release. Do you envision house swaps between Orlando and Hollywood like Monstros and Dead Exposure? 100%. 100%, especially as we get closer to the Vegas experience opening. I think we will be seeing more stuff happening cross coast as we sort of build up to Horror Unleashed opening in Vegas, where we see both kind of the Orlando side and the Hollywood side kind of mixed together, but not really. At least global, like I won't say global, like countrywide opinions. What do people like, right? If people like Monstros, maybe we'll see Monstros in Vegas. If people like, Blumhouse, people see Blumhouse in Vegas. So I think we're going to see some of this stuff like that. So definitely I could see more happening in the future. Although I will say Hollywood doesn't have that many originals. Latin American Monsters, I think, is the biggest original. I'm not talking about, like, I know Scarecrow, but that was Orlando's first. Hollywood really has the Latin American Monsters. That's like the biggest thing. So I don't know what else they would really do. I know they can maybe pull Hollywood Harry or Larry Larva and the Bugs, or which also kind of felt like their take on Bugs Eaten Alive. But I know there are originals, but I'm curious what would be swapped as well. Like Orlando has a laundry list of originals you could take to Hollywood: Slaughter Cinema, Seeds of Extinction, like a Dead Man's Pier. Like there's so many great originals you can take over to Hollywood. But I'm not sure how it goes the other way around. Holidays in Hell. Okay, that was one I didn't think about. Yeah, definitely. Even though I know we had Holidays in Hell technically with HR Blood and Guts, but Holidays in Hell as we know it in Hollywood, for sure. Monsters probably gets announced the week at the convention where Hollywood says / with the audio. Maybe. I definitely see that unless it's an all original convention and they really go into Monstros or what do you call it? Dead Exposure. Sorry, I had to think about it for a second. Considering that those are originals and you really see them going, maybe they go into the Monsters house too. Murdy has been really quiet about Ghostbusters. He basically said we want it to be a surprise. So we're not getting anything from Ghostbusters from Murdy. And Quiet Place, I'm sure also not very much because it's a third party, but wouldn't be surprised if that's what's going on. But yeah. So there's some comments about Otis being like, yes, for sure. And we'll dive into that when we dive into that first scare zone, I guess we could say. One more comment before we get into the spec maps. This year, I'm trying SeaWorld's Scary Halloween in Orlando. So I'm guessing you mean Howl-O-Scream. The roller coasters are extremely underrated. If y'all have never been to SeaWorld's Howl-O-Scream, I had a really great time last year. I plan on going back this year. Try to make it out to Tampa this year for their anniversary. They're all there. All of Howl-O-Scream Tampa's houses have been announced on the website. Zombie Chris, if you're still in the chat, I know you're up on this. And we've gotten one house and a couple scare zones for Orlando. I'm not too sure. But Howl-O-Scream Orlando is a fun time. If you're in the area for horror nights, for sure, definitely go check out Howl-O-Scream Orlando and Tampa if you're around the area or you're willing to make the drive. So okay, let's talk about these icons. So the first scare zone, we have these talks about Otis being the icon, and we see over in the front area where Dr. Oddfellow's collection of horror was last year, we see this eye with a dual pupil, which is the same eye as we see from Otis. I don't have a picture on hand, but it's the same eye pupil we see from Otis. So I'm curious to see if we get a Otis or Otis related scare zone, like what's living beneath Universal. I think that would be really cool. Like these like really creepy, crazy sewer monsters, or maybe it be like how, like Dr. Oddfellows was, or the Pumpkin Lord Scare Zone was, or 30 Years, 30 Fears. They bring together a bunch of characters across the park from the other scare zones like they do every year. But I would really love for this to be a new, like just really an icon scare zone. Well, I'm doing big air quotes, icon scare zone, because I don't know if Otis, because the thing is, I feel like it's hard to make Otis an icon unless we really know more. Because if there's no real if we don't know backstory, if Otis doesn't speak, if we don't really get a vibe for what Otis is about. Now, this can be we learn more later on. Right now, I have a hard time calling Otis an icon. I definitely feel more like he's like a little Boo kind of character, where he's someone they're going to put on merch, they're going to put on some of the marketing, but maybe doesn't really have like a presence at the event. And this could be just me. I really would like them to make like a new sort of icon, but I'm curious how they would execute it. I know there's been talks about putting Otis on the actual arches. Yes, please, let's do some projection work. The trusses are already up outside of the arches. So what do we say? We actually get some cool projection work happening like they do for the building projections at Hogwarts or for the new Cinesational show. They've really leveled up that technology. So what if we see that executed in a Otis themed scare zone? It would do something really different with the arches that we haven't seen in a long, long time, where they actually theme the arches to the event versus just putting the posters of the IPs up and calling it a day. So, and I think it would also make for a killer photo op. I mean, imagine you're taking a picture, you're going up to the gates, and you see it's this big monstrous gate. You're like, hell yeah, that's a cool picture to put on your Instagram. So, so if you were to do that, then maybe lead into, you maybe have your Horror Nights sign like they always, like they've been having for the past 3 years. and then have whatever little creatures you have running around. Maybe the big set piece is that sort of embryo thing that we see, the little cocoon that we see in the preview that has now been unleashed onto the park. I think that'd be kind of cool. So some kind of opening scare zone theme to the Fear Cannot Be Contained, the underground universal. Yeah, what do we think about that? What do we think about the potential of that being the theme for the scare zone? I do wonder what kind of monsters they would have. So my guess would be like sewer monsters. Like, I don't know, like these very like, I know Kimino, you keep talking about like Doom, like a Doom kind of thing. Like I honestly could see a vibe like that, like Doom creatures, very like like I don't like gross, but like monstrous creatures, like these really unique creatures. You can't really even tell what they look like. That's one of the things I really liked about last year's scare zones for Zodiac and for Jungle. It was kind of hard to tell what they were. You're like, what the hell are you? You're like looking at them. You're like, what's going on here? These costumes are really detailed and completely transform what we see out of a scare. It doesn't look like someone in a costume, right? It looks like an actual creature. So I think that would be really cool. With it, what if it has different themes? Freezing for Ghostbusters, switches to Otis. Yeah, I mean, I think that would be great. Theme it. You could do it projected all kinds of different ways. Freezing for Ghostbusters, if you wanted to make it black and white for maybe a Universal Monsters thing. Add some details for maybe a for Major Suites, or maybe like a Slaughter Cinema. You project stuff on the arches. I don't know. I think that would all be really interesting if they were to really theme the arches. That's what I'm hoping for. It's kind of wishful thinking. I don't think they're necessarily going to do that. But I think that's where it looks like that's where we're heading. And that is very, very exciting. Okay. So from there, we go to New York, where this one is the biggest wild card, I think, out of this. Most of the other ones are pretty self-explanatory with the icons. New York. What the hell is going on with New York? We have a skull with a biker helmet on. I've seen the idea thrown around of the apocalypse bikers. I've seen the idea thrown around of devil dogs. Since we're getting Slaughter Cinema 2 this year, devil dogs from the original Slaughter Cinema getting their Scare Zone debut. Whatever it is, my guess is here and in Hollywood, it's going to have to be rollout sets or very simple set pieces, because the parade is going to go through that area. I mean, same thing really with the opening scare zone. The parade is going to go through that whole area, the new Mega Movie Parade, and it looks like that parade is going to be quite a bit bigger than what we've seen from the other parades. So my guess is that it's going to again be a lot of rollout pieces or stuff we don't really see on the streets. I think in New York, they have the little. Across from the tribute store, they have a little alcove area. They have benches there, and it's used. They put food booths there for Mardi Gras. They typically put stuff like that's where the stage was for Vamp last year, if you were in the park. So in that kind of area, you do a really cool set piece. Maybe the bar if it is Demon Dogs, but I don't know. I really don't love the idea of an apocalypse zone. Apocalypse isn't my favorite theme out of any theme you can get for Horror Nights. It's probably one of my least favorite. I've said this before, but I'm down for whatever. I love scare zones. I think scare zones are a lot of fun. I think a lot of people don't really give scare zones the respect they should get when they're good. Like when they're really good, I feel like sometimes I feel like they don't really get the versus when you have an amazing all-timer scare zone versus an all-timer house, people are going to flock to the all-timer house. People are going to talk about, oh my God, Demon's Pier was so great. What about Graveyard? What about, these great scare zones that we see? And I know we love them, but I think scare zones have a really unique opportunity with Horror Nights because you get to really interact with the horror, in some cases, like in a case like Psychoscarapy from 2015, Sweet Revenge, the Vamp zones, doing things like that where you can have these great interactions. But even in Graveyard, I mean, there's a lot of great interactions to be had in there, or in trying to think, like Trick or Treat or Twisted Tradition or other things like that. I feel like you can really get immersed in an environment like that. So anyway, it's my rant about scare zones. But yeah, I don't know much about this one. It's New York, so it's the biggest one. So I'm curious to see, like I said, about really most of the stuff here. Obviously, on this list, we have 8 houses confirmed. The Cadillac symbol is now Ghostbusters. But everything else is official, obviously. So I feel like now we've kind of gotten to that point where we're locked into what we're seeing. Like this is pretty, I'm guessing, going to be pretty close to what we see unless there's a drastic shift with the scare zones. We haven't seen any construction. We've seen construction, but nothing indicating what we're going to see. But, once we start to see more of it, my guess is that these get announced. Last year they announced the scare zones near the end of July, and considering we're getting Premium Scream Night and the event's starting at the end of August, my guess is that it'll be announced at the same time, if not earlier. Before, because it seems like Horror Nights is trying to beat out the speculation game. So releasing them early, it's like what they did with the houses, just putting them out before, because Universal in general sometimes does this where they, if they're going to put a sign out for a ride, they're going to announce what that ride is. They're going to be like, here, before we have stuff indicating what we're doing, other than Epic. I think Epic's the only other example to this, which the rollout for Epic has been interesting. But yeah, like it's like when it happened last year, we saw the Vamp stage go up. We saw some of the 60s posters around. We're like, okay, so we know this has got to be Woodstock Zone. And then they were like, oh shoot, well, let's announce this now so we can continue without anybody having to be like, what's this? So my guess is these are what we're kind of looking at. But yeah. Love scare zones. Wish they were longer. I agree with you. I wish that San Francisco would extend. And I don't mean towards Harry Potter, because I know obviously JK has a weird thing with that. But I really I wish San Francisco would extend really to Fast and Furious, like to the end of Fast and Furious where the Ghirardelli building is. I wish they would expand that whole street. I feel like it would give us so much more room in that zone, and I think that zone, in my opinion, is the worst zone anywhere. I think it's the worst when it comes to crowding and sets. You don't really have a lot of capability to do that. I like the zone. Some of the zones I've seen, like Shipyard, that was cool. Conjure the Dark was great, but I just think that area is just not a good area for zones if they don't expand it. And I say, I wish New York would expand into these streets here, at least the second street where Boris Schuster's office is, because there's nothing that goes on down that street. The other street, they put food booths, so I understand you don't want to mess with that. But I agree. I wish they would expand scare zones. With the New York symbol, HHN has said the symbol, when zoomed in, shows then the helmet. It shows world on fire with motorcycle handlebars. So an apocalypse thing. Makes sense. That's what I was thinking, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. So very curious to see what they do with this zone here. I want more super immersive scare zones. I think super immersive how? Because I think, like, unfortunately, I think with the parade coming back, and if they keep the parade into the coming years, I don't see them having these crazy big zones like how they used to have them. Just I don't see it happening, and it sucks because last year would have been the perfect year to really do it up, especially in Hollywood. I feel like Hollywood was an area that they definitely had more things they could have added. I liked Dark Zodiac, but more for the characters than the actual sets. July will be big for HHN. 2 announcements left, the rest of the rollout. Yeah, July's got to be it. I mean, I think Frequent Fear passes, all that stuff. Midsummer Scream. I think we're definitely going to see more announcements all through July. So stay tuned to the channel if you're not already subscribed. And I'm sure all of you are, because y'all are the real ones that come to these streams that have already been here for an hour. But yeah, if you're not already subscribed, be sure to subscribe, because I'm going to be covering it all of July and see what happens. I wonder if the early dates for unmasking will lead to announcements early next month. I don't know about early next month, but I do think I don't know. I don't know why because my thing is that, like, I know people who will wait, myself. I wait to book the Unmasking the Horror tours and choose which tour. Like, granted, I did both tours last year, mostly because of the houses that were on the tour. I had the six house planned, and I was like, well, I can do the 3 house, and I love the Darkest Deal, and I love Dr. Oddfellow's house after doing them. So it got me to actually want to book the event. But I don't, did I book? No, I didn't even book. I have never booked an Unmasking without knowing the houses. Because when I did my first one was from Demon's Pier, was what sold me to book the first one that I did. Last year was Dueling Dragons and Stranger Things. And so I don't know why it seems like kind of a weird strategy to drop the tours before the announcements happen. And we've talked about the tours and my thoughts on the tours, and why they're early. But and I'm not to say this to hate on anybody who does book the tours without knowing everything in advance, because that's kind of a cool thing too. Like, you already sold. I mean, for me, I was considering it because I love this event and I'm happy with any house that I can see with the lights on and get photos of. But what really sells me on a tour is when I know the houses. So like, once I see the houses, I'm looking into booking a 6 house tour this year. When I see the houses, I'll be like, okay, let me see what I really want to book this one, or do I want to maybe go for the 3 house? In my opinion, I would say go for the 6 house. If you're looking to book, 6 house is a better value, and I feel like it's a fuller experience. The 3 house tours are fun though, so I will say if you like something quick and easy, 3 house tours. Anyway, I keep rambling. I genuinely wish they were able to do the scare zones in their own little dark universes. Yeah, unfortunately, because it is such a temporary event, because they have to deal with the rest of the park, I don't know when they would be able to do that. They used to do it a lot more, but the event's too big and the park is changing. So many areas have opened in the past 20 years, really in the past 10 years, that have knocked back some of the potential for these big scare zones. Springfield, Harry Potter, Minion Land, DreamWorks Land, a lot of this stuff. Granted, DreamWorks Land doesn't ever have a scare zone in it, but you know what I mean? There are things that are changing, and it's kind of hard to adapt. I booked an Unmasking for opening weekend, debating doing a 3 house for closing. I think it's a lot of fun. I usually do my tours later into the event. Last year, both years, I booked mine later, because it also gives you time to see the houses like as they are versus taking the tour. So you get to see it and be like, oh wow, okay, I've been through this house a bunch of times, at least for, if you have a frequent fear pass, you've been to the house, or even if you've only been to the house once. Like, I wouldn't say, that's why I say I don't like the idea of doing it before I do the event itself. Even if you were only going for one night, I would say do it if you're planning on coming for like a weekend, doing a tour after you experience the houses, because you get to also have that memory of like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember going in here, I remember seeing this, and now I could see it with more detail. And then it's cool if you go to the event after doing a tour, whether that's again on a trip or if you're local. Going to the event after doing a tour is so cool. If you go to the house, like I always try to do that with all of them. I'll try to go into the houses that I went into the tour. I was like, I was just in here a few hours ago, and now I'm seeing it all lit up, and I can look for all the little Easter eggs. Normally I book the 6 house tour as soon as announced, so way before. Yeah, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Like, I think that's cool. For me, I don't mostly. I mean, sometimes it's a money thing of like, trying to put aside money, save. By the time Horror Nights comes on, I've already saved enough that I can be like, okay, I can pop out a tour and do that, versus, in whatever March they drop. But it's to each their own. Do you think they'll ever move the event to Epic? I don't think they're going to ever do Halloween Horror Nights at Epic, just because of the way the areas are designed. They're not really designed to accommodate HHN. They're designed like how the Wizarding World is, where you can't really fit a soundstage back there. You can put tents in the back, but I don't think they want it to I think that's where they're moving in the future. And that's why I think they're also not moving it to Islands anytime soon, not until Epic opens maybe, because I think their move is for these really hyper immersive lands that don't put any spooky things anywhere near it. Don't put a scare zone here. Don't put house entrances here. That's my thought. So I don't see them ever doing that. maybe they build some sort of haunted house experience in Dark Universe in the future. But no, I don't see them ever bringing the event proper to Epic, as cool as it would be. While we were looking at the spec map of the park area, how do you feel about the biggest IPs in this year being in sound stages back to back to back? I thank you for bringing this up, because this New York Stay and Scream is going to be hell this year. Even though these IPs aren't like Stranger Things level, there's so many, like Ghostbusters, Insidious, potentially. I mean, we don't know where that is, but looking at this, right? Okay, Quiet Place, Ghostbusters, Insidious, all in one location. Woof, that is a crazy little time. And considering that these 3 spots were the spots they used for Stay and Scream last year, Dueling Dragons was in 24A, Stranger Things was in 23B, and Exorcist was in 22. All 3 of the houses they had at Stay and Scream last year for Halloween Horror Nights in New York were all here. So assuming they use the same Stay and Scream locations they had for last year, it's these 3 major suites, and what looks to be maybe Museum and Slaughter Cinema, or maybe Monsters and Goblins Feast for Central Park. So, yeah, New York Stay and Scream is going to be wild. I think this is going to make this whole area very, very wild, very high traffic. Considering also Ghostbusters and Quiet Place exit in the same spot, and Monstros too. All 3 of these exit in the exact same flow location, meaning there are going to be tons of people coming out that way. So, yeah, this area here might not be the most fun to hang out in this year. Really, the back of the park looks like it's a place to be. We got Slaughter Cinema, Museum. So, yeah, it's exciting. It's going to be interesting. I want to do everyday opening weekend. I know Chris did this last year, and we've been talking about it. I want to do a different Stay and Scream every day to try them out. That was a good idea on his part. We could get the event in England. So, yes, that's also a bit of news that I wanted to talk about here. That the potential for Horror Nights in the UK with the UK park. I'm not going to – there's not much to talk about, so we can say maybe it's going to happen. I mean, they talked about it. They threw out the name of Halloween Horror Nights. Like they said specifically, we want to bring something like Halloween Horror Nights here. Makes sense. It's their most profitable event, and it has the most widespread appeal. They have haunts in the UK, and so it's not surprising that they want to bring that. And I will obviously cover that when we get more news about it. I will obviously cover that as well as Horror Unleashed when we get more news about it on the channel. Do you think that both Hollywood and Orlando are focusing more time and money on their respective summer events? I don't want to say that HHN isn't their priority, because I think, and this is going to be a little rant, and this is something that I've had on my mind for a while. I feel like when people like Horror Nights, even though we're not getting Stranger Things this year, even though we're not getting Last of Us this year, even though we're not even getting like Chucky this year, Horror Nights is an expensive event. It only gets more expensive to make, right? It only gets more expensive to put together. So, and you have 2 big third-party IPs here from studios that don't really have a relationship with Universal as far as we know. I don't know the last Sony movie that was featured at Horror Nights. I don't really know the last Paramount movie that was featured at Horror Nights, which is Quiet Place and Ghostbusters. So my thing is, I don't think it's necessarily not their priority. I just think, and I knew this was going to happen, that I think this year is going to be a smaller year than what we saw last year. Last year was so big in terms of big icon, 5 originals, 5 IP. We had big scare zones. We had interactive experiences. We had, all this stuff happening, merch, food. It's so big. It's so packed. It's so crazy. We don't get those years all the time. Those years are every once in a while. You think of a year like 2019 as another year like that. Big IPs, big events, one that people remember fondly. And I think this year is kind of I don't want to say the slowdown, but I think it's a little bit of a more chill, no pun intended, year at the event. Now, granted, we do have big IPs, Ghostbusters, Quiet Place. I think a lot more people are excited for A Quiet Place than we originally thought. And I'm sure Insidious will be successful because that's another just big popular IP. But my point in saying that like, I just think I think they maybe this is the case, and this can totally be true. I'm not even saying it because I don't know anything. I don't know anything about budgets. I don't know anything about where this money goes and where the time goes. But I think it's a combination of a few different things, but I don't think it's necessarily meaning that Horror Nights is going to not be like it's going to be half-assed this year. I don't think that is necessarily the factor. Now, that I could be totally wrong. I could be, and it's going to be a little, this is kind of like, being a little overly positive here. And that's most, like, I try to keep things mostly positive, but it is something I did want to talk about because I don't necessarily think this year is going to be less in quality. I just think it's just going to be, looking at this lineup outside of the IPs, like take the IPs out of the question. This is a weird ass lineup of originals. You have a couple returners, a couple weird, like Goblin's Feast, Triplets of Terror. We're like, what is going on here? The museum, it's like, even the scare zones. Look at the merch. Look at really all the way they promoted this event has been really odd. And I think that's kind of what they're maybe going for this year. It seems like that's kind of the vibe I'm getting from everything. It's not necessarily a crowd pleaser year, I don't think. But it's not maybe going to be for everybody. But I also do want to respect they're putting a lot of effort into the summer stuff. The parade and Cinesational, which Cinesational was wonderful. And I can tell there was a lot of money and time put into that show. Hopefully that means we get a Lagoon show soon, maybe next year, for Horror Nights. But yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know. I think there could be an ounce of this, but I also don't think it's necessarily the only thing that's going on. Obviously, Epic is happening, but I also think Horror Unleashed is happening. I think that's something not a lot of people are talking about. Universal is building a full-on Horror Nights attraction and developing haunted houses and experiences for that haunted house or the haunted attraction in Vegas. And that's got to be year-round. So, yes, some things are going to summer. Yes, some things are going to Epic. But I also think Horror Unleashed is something people aren't talking about. All of that being said, though, I don't think that it's necessarily going to mean that we're going to not get a good event this year or not have good offerings. I'm just vouching for that. I want to enjoy the event. I don't want the event to be bad. I really want the event to be great. And I'm honestly excited for everything we've seen so far. I know a lot of people aren't, and that's fair. And that's anyone's opinion. That's totally your opinion. And I'm not trying to shut down anyone's opinion that maybe isn't feeling it, because you might not be feeling it. That's okay. Anyway, that's my little rant there. And of course, I have plenty more thoughts on that, but I want to jump into some of the other chats here. I started to question Insidious location. Must have big sets inside the soundstage. Yeah. So my thinking is that, I mean, the original thought was that Insidious was going to be in 22, and looking at The Exorcist last year, those sets weren't really that big. Like, they were pretty small scale for the most, like, they weren't very tall, right? The biggest thing, like, there were a couple outdoor scenes that were very big in scale, but a lot of it was inside of a house, which made me think, oh, that might be what Insidious is going to be. So I wouldn't be totally surprised if we see Insidious get some of those sets. Maybe it's one of those that has a variety, like how like The Last of Us is a good example of a house that had some very, very big and tall sets. It had some pretty tight corridors and tight hallways there. It had a little bit of everything. So maybe we're going to get to see maybe a big facade. Maybe we get the house facade again inside this time. Or maybe we get a facade that's similar to the one we see in Hollywood. Who knows? But be very curious. Yeah, from everything that we've been hearing, Insidious is in a soundstage. Although anything can change. It's all spec, of course. The last Sony movies featured HHN were Ghostbusters and Zombieland. So, okay, makes sense. I didn't know. I didn't know that Zombieland was Sony. So yeah, that's still been a while. It's not like Netflix, where they do a Netflix property every year, every other year. So yeah, totally not surprised here to see that Zombieland is and Ghostbusters. They have really been leaning into Ghostbusters. So it makes me curious of what other properties we could see in the future, maybe if they're starting to get that relationship. Okay, I'm going to move over to San Fran. We did talk a little bit about San Fran. We have a image of a teddy bear and some blocks here, potentially doing a dolls toys zone. Of course, they had a dolls and toys scare zone over in Hollywood, HHN Hollywood last year, which was very well received from everyone who I've seen who went to Hollywood last year. They said that was an incredible scare zone in terms of like the energy. So I'm really curious to see how we'll translate something like that, or maybe we get a sequel to Dollhouse of the Damned. Or maybe it ties into Major Suites, because if Major Suites is in this location, you have lots of kids in this house. Maybe this is their toy or toy shop or toy factory or something like that tied in with Major Suites. Or maybe it's all of these things all tied together. We don't know, but this one, honestly, maybe the one that piques my interest the most out of what we see on this map. So the Dolls Toy Zone. Down here in Central Park, we have a sombrero, likely to indicate maybe a Dia de los Muertos theme, or maybe just a Latin American theme. But I'm guessing specifically Dia de los Muertos because we had a sugar skull in the last map and a sombrero. I think that we'll be seeing something like that. I'm guessing this will be our beautiful, very, very nice scenic scare zone. With Central Park always seems to have that because they have the trees and the foliage. So I would love that to be here. And my one problem with Central Park is that it's really tight. But if they make this more of a visual scare zone than a scary one, I think that would be kind of cool. And then down here, we have the Blumhouse symbol in Hollywood, as well as a bow to indicate Megans. Of course, the Megans did perform in this area last year, so maybe we see the Megans return in this spot in a more regular appearance, like the Death Eaters we see in the top right. And I think it would be cool if they had a Horrors of Blumhouse scare zone with Megan at the end kind of doing her performances. Maybe she then goes into the scare zone, kind of like what the Death Eaters do. They do a little show, and then they roam around Diagon Alley. So maybe we see that go down with Megan and Blumhouse. So yeah, curious about that one. I like the Blumhouse series. We could see all kinds of characters: Purgers, the Grabber, the Butcher, and Millie from the Freaky. Maybe some of the characters from Sinister, and maybe some other ones we haven't seen yet. I don't think this means FNAF, because I don't see where that's at all possible to pull off in a scare zone. I see that as just a pain in general. But most of the other Blumhouse properties I could see, and I can see definitely this being a photo op scare zone. Being one that you're like, I want to get my picture with the Grabber, kind of like what they did at Hollywood. So okay, that's what we got for scare zones. We have some chats here, and then we can talk more about the scare zones. But yeah, let's jump into these chats. Based on things you've heard and seen, what properties do you think we'll see for the Blumhouse Terror Tram? Kind of already answered that. Purge, Megan, Black Phone, Insidious, maybe Insidious, probably not Insidious. I don't know about Insidious, but considering they have the house, but maybe. And then Sinister, Freaky, Happy Death Day, the Babyface Killers, for sure, and Happy Death Day. And then what else? What would be another? I think that's about it. As far as I can tell, that I'm thinking maybe The Exorcist, maybe the girls from that house, maybe the demon. I don't think we'll see Michael Myers in there, but do you think the Peacock Bar is coming back this year? Hollywood's Peacock Bar is apparently coming back with the Chucky Experience. Would not be shocked if we see the Peacock Bar return here in Orlando. And it honestly wouldn't be shocked either if they brought David S. Pumpkins back. He was very popular on social media. Everybody seemed to love David S. Pumpkins. He was very, a distinct presence, a distinct like a scratch your head moment from last year's event. We'll be curious to see if I see personally. Okay, if you're asking me, I think they should move where I thought the Peacock Bar was going to be last year. I think they should move it to the Battery Park Bar, which is, for those who don't know, that's the bar right across from Mel's Drive-In next to Transformers. That would kind of tie into the scare zone a little bit, because some of the Peacock properties like the Purge and such could tie into the bar. and tied into the scare zone. So maybe we see them here in this bar instead of the Lombard's bar. And they normally have a bar or food location here anyway. So maybe expand that. And they have a lower level, so maybe they put some meet and greets down there like they did for the Peacock Bar. I think that'd be kind of cool, especially if there's no Lagoon show. You wouldn't really have to worry about that. But I do think we're going to get another bar. Like I said, maybe not in the location, but you never know. They could bring it right back to San Fran again, like they had it last year. So yeah, Megan better have a big stage. Scare Zone sounds super dope. Themed bar. Let's hope it's not like Crypt TV. Yeah, I think Crypt TV also kind of suffered from the COVID thing of obviously it was in the first year back. So I think that was definitely a part of why Crypt TV didn't really work 100% because it was just, a lot of it was like platforms. So you didn't really get the characters. And also it's like with Blumhouse, you have a little more recognizable characters. You can really go into, The Purge, and people know what The Purge is, right? People know what Sinister is. People know what the Black Phone is, right? So you can go, and especially with these sequels, a lot of these movies are getting sequels. Megan 2, Black Phone 2, new Purge movie coming soon, the new Wolfman, FNAF 2. Obviously, I mentioned. Don't think we'll see FNAF, but. And that's why I say my thinking is if they had FNAF, they would people would swarm the FNAF characters. They wouldn't be able to, and it would be it just seems like it wouldn't be safe. You imagine if you roll out a giant animatronic walking around the streets of Hollywood, you think everybody wouldn't want a picture with it. I feel like it would be very unsafe for the actors and very unsafe for the guests just because it's just a big thing. I think if they're going to do FNAF, they would only do it in a house. And again, hopefully they do it next year in a house, but let's see. Emily, hey there. I'm sorry for being late. Don't worry about it. We're just chilling here talking about HHN and talking about Spec Map. And if you have any questions about anything going on with HHN, whether it's the announcements or Spec Map, pop in the chat and we'll talk about it. What's your most anticipated house at the moment? Still probably got to be Slaughter Cinema. Slaughter Cinema 2. Really excited for that one. I was excited for that one as soon as it was announced. Number 2 is probably got to be Major Suites because I love that scare zone so much, and I'm so excited to return to it. Hopefully they really carry the tone over. And then 3, really, I'm honestly thinking Ghostbusters because I just love Ghostbusters. I love the Ghostbusters series, and I'm so excited to see what they do with it. I'm very curious to see what they do with it and what they pull. I think this will be the big IP house for this year. This and A Quiet Place, I think, are going to be the 2 big ones this year. And they're teasing in Orlando. It's going to have a lot of big scale. So I'm guessing some big sets here, big sets, big characters. So yeah, those are my 3. Although I'm hyped for every house. I said that last year, and I'm saying it this year. And I know it sounds like okay, you can't be. It's like. No, genuinely, my least hyped is A Quiet Place, and I'm still very curious about how they're going to do it, especially after the trailer. I really wasn't that excited before we got our trailer, but now that we got our trailer and we know what it's going to look like, absolutely. They could do the Clown Cafe instead of the Peacock Bar. Peacock Bar, it's branding, man. You gotta have that branding in there and sell Peacock subscriptions. I think that'd be kind of cool. I think we'll get an Abigail meet and greet. I don't think Abigail is Blumhouse. So maybe in the Peacock Bar. I think that would be kind of cool. But I'm not sure. I just don't know where the movie was that successful. Now, a movie that I do really would love to see in a Peacock Bar or in one of these bars, give me Lisa Frankenstein meet and greets. I would love that. I would love a Lisa Frankenstein meet and greet. I really loved that movie a lot. And I think it would be a really fun character, not necessarily for a scare zone. I think they could do a really fun Lisa Frankenstein house if they really wanted to. Don't see that ever happening, but yeah. So Abigail's Universal Studios. Yeah, I just don't know what I mean. I wouldn't write it off. But I I mean, I think it would be a cool meet and greet for sure, because I know that character in that movie was very like, it had its moment. But no, I mean, I would love a Lisa Frankenstein meet and greet or something. Have do it almost like how you do the Bride and Frankenstein's monster in Hollywood, where the monster doesn't speak, because it's kind of how it is in the movie. I've heard that FNAF will reveal an unknown collaboration. Who knows? I don't think it'll be Horror Nights, but you know what? They can pull anything out if they want to, and I'll be shocked. But yeah. The Strangers have appeared at HHN. I don't think they would, because they're who owns that? Is that Paramount? That might be Paramount. So, but I don't think they would appear in a Peacock bar, because they are not owned by Universal. But but yeah, they have appeared at HHN before in a couple scare zones. You see the bio reconstruction part in the 10 facade? Yes, I did. I'm not going to post it. I'm not going to put it in here. You see it yourself. That's on you. Looks really interesting. That's all I'm going to say about that. I like to kind of save my opinion on the facades until we really see them. Like, I know I've talked about the tents, but I want to save my opinion on the facades until we see them. They're really interesting. I will say that. What we're seeing, lots of stuff we know, lots of stuff we don't know. But if you don't, again, if you want to go check that out, by Reconstruct, you'll see it on Twitter. They're coming along quite well. Sequel releases next year. FNAF next year. FNAF meet and greet, maybe. Yeah. Again, it's one of those things that I don't see them like never doing it. I just don't know when they would do it, and we haven't really heard much about FNAF at all at this event, so I don't think it'll happen this year, and I don't think they would do that if they don't. Again, I think a house is a controlled environment because it's a house, right? They can, obviously people are going to go crazy when they see those animatronics. Like, it's just a fact. So having them in the places where they really can't control them, I think is something that I don't really see them going for. But yeah. How do you feel about the weekend only coming to Hollywood? I'm a little bummed. I mean, I would like to have the weekend back, but I don't mind it coming back to Hollywood. It's all good. I'm happy they're, Hollywood's likely to get another weekend house. The weekend seemed to really like working with Hollywood. So, yeah, I don't mind it. I like what we have here. And, I'm just excited to see what we actually see, what we see at the event. Overall, the scare zones, they don't really seem tied together, but they look great. Yeah, that's my thought. I don't think they're necessarily going to tie together, and I really, I don't want them to. I want them to be their own thing. I want them to have their own personality, and I wouldn't mind if they're not tied together. That's okay, as long as they're good. How's your summer going? Hello, Curtis. I know you just jumped into the live stream. My summer's going well. Just trying to get videos out and, trying to really just trying to stay on top of everything, all the news, all the updates. There's so much stuff going on, but it's fun. And a little update. I know it's kind of pivoting. Thank you all for the support on the Dark Universe video. And also the Nintendo video should be coming next week. I'm working on writing it now, and then for those who don't know, I did a video on Dark Universe. I'm sure most of y'all have seen it. Did very well on the channel, and I plan on doing a multiple series of every land at Epic Universe, diving into it in that same style, diving into all the offerings and diving into why I think they're so important, why I think they're going to really change Universal in the future. It was always planned to be a series, so I am working out the future videos for that one. So stay tuned to the channel for those of you interested at all at Epic Universe, lands, Super Mario, or Super Nintendo, How to Train Your Dragon, Celestial Park, and Harry Potter when the announcement comes. Super well balanced year. That's my thought in general. I think like, I think we have a lot of exciting things to look forward to. I think we have some good comedy houses, with things like Ghostbusters, Major Suites, even Slaughter Cinema to a degree, kind of like a dark comedy. We have some really scary looking houses like A Quiet Place, Insidious, Monstros. I think all those are gonna be super scary. We have some potential for some scenic houses. We have some potential for some camp. It's looking like, already there's a lot of stuff happening. And it's already looking very, very much like there's going to be something for everyone. So I feel like you'll be able to find something to enjoy here. Even if it's not everything, there'll be something to enjoy for every kind of fan. The two announcements, Halloween Horror Nights, are here. Are you talking about Monstros and can't wait for the next Horror Nights? Yeah. My thought is, I was just asking if it was going to be Ghostbusters and Monstros. That's my guess that's what that is. And yeah, they're both here. I'm excited for both of those. I'm not going to visit Hollywood probably this year. So I'm more putting the videos out for you guys, who I know are Hollywood. I'm really trying to show Hollywood love this year. I really didn't do a lot of that last year. And I'm really putting out videos because I know people have said, I like when you talk about Hollywood. So I will talk about Hollywood when I can. And when it's, when stuff gets announced, when we get more info, obviously I'll put out more videos on Hollywood, as well as Orlando. For my Hollywood friends getting Monstros and also getting Ghostbusters, and for us just getting Ghostbusters, which I'm not mad. I love Ghostbusters. So yeah, I think the next announcement, my guess is that it's going to be the week after next. I don't think it's going to be next week because I wouldn't be shocked if it was next week, but I don't think it will be. But I'm going to be prepped for it maybe to be next week because Dead Exposure was last week. Monstros was earlier this week. I'm guessing Ghostbusters maybe seemed to be something like maybe it was planned, but I also get the vibe that like maybe it was a little more of a surprise than because it was a surprise to most everybody. And we already got Monstros earlier this week, so I'm not sure if that was what was the whole thing on that, but we got 6 originals in a week, so Hollywood can get 2 houses in a week. I think the week after next we'll be getting another IP announcement, and my guess is that IP and frequent fair passes will go on sale in the middle of July, and then maybe after that we'll get. There won't be anything on the 4th of July week. I wasn't thinking so because it's holiday week. My guess is the week after that. Week after next, we'll see another IP announcement as well as frequent fair passes about the time they went on sale last year. And then my guess is after that, maybe a week or two before the month ends, we'll have everything announced. It's my guess. And then my guess is then in the beginning of August, we'll get everything announced for Hollywood. If we're following last year's pattern, that's what we saw. Who do you think the icon will be? So we talked about this briefly, but I'm not sure. I am not sure at all. Thinking maybe Otis, maybe like something related to Otis. But either way, we don't know yet. The first lore video for Monstros, I know there's a comment here about lore, the Discover Universal podcast for Monstros was released today. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's actually really well produced. Fellow creator Brian from Orlando, shout out to Brian from Orlando, is hosting some of the Discover Universal podcasts for HHN. So big shout out to him, obviously, repping the community. It's awesome. So we see that. So I don't know, because I feel like it would be revealed in one of these videos maybe, or maybe in an official release of like, here's kind of where we're going for an icon this year. My guess is that there is something related to the what's underneath Universal, but also I could totally see there not being an icon and it being something like an idea more than a character. But again, who knows? Maybe Otis is the icon. Maybe Otis is not. Maybe there's another character we don't know. Who knows? So there's some comments here on Dark Universe. Do you still think the chance that Universal Monsters House will be a tie-in? I don't think so, because I think they made it pretty clear that they want to really set up the story of Victoria Frankenstein in the land itself. And I'm not sure. I have to look back at the Universal Monsters houses they've done in Orlando and Hollywood, but they revealed that with Dark Universe, the canon is based on the movies. Like the movies, this land takes place after the movies have happened. So if the Halloween Horror Nights takes place outside of that, I wouldn't see where they would tie it in because it doesn't fit in the same timeline. But I think they're trying to keep it very contained to what we're seeing in the land. I think we're really going to make the story of the attraction be Victoria Frankenstein's story. So I don't think we're going to necessarily see it tie in to the land. I think they may have some put some merch out or something, but I don't really see it tying in concept. Maybe some Easter eggs. Now we'll say Easter eggs I think are fair game, considering we already know about Dark Universe, but I don't think it's necessarily going to tie in. Personally, as much as I would love that, I don't think it's going to. They really seem to hide the lore until the event officially begins. I mean, they didn't even reveal Oddfellow until late August. Otis revealed, yeah, I mean, Otis, for me, speaks to more, and I mentioned this earlier, it speaks to me more like an idea of like a little Boo thing where it's, I don't want to say the word mascot, but it's kind of like that. Like, it's kind of like, because they show him in the trailer and they're like, Halloween Horror Nights, where horror lives. And that little phrase that's our tagline this year, where horror lives. So I'm guessing that Otis is going to be on some merch and they're going to sell some stuff with him. I don't know if they're going to bring him to life because it would have to be something on both coasts. So, and Hollywood doesn't really do icons like that. So I don't know. I think it maybe be like what Otis is connecting to, but not Otis is the icon, but Otis could be the mascot, like Lil Boo. They sell Lil Boo stuff in Hollywood too, if that makes sense. It's really kind of convoluted, and this is all just speculation, so we're all just guessing. If you were to come up with a joke film for Slaughter Cinema, what would it be? Wait. So for those who've been on the channel for a while, I did a video, my Dream Map video, where I pitched is it here? So I pitched a sequel to Slaughter Cinema, which was a holiday special. So like all holiday themed movies, because I love the whole holidays, Christmas and Halloween mix. I love that mixture. I love all the theming they do with it. It's really fun and kind of goofy can be. So I've written out a bunch of ideas for like any variety of those. So my guess would be something like that, like something like an Evil Santa or like Terror in the Toy Factory or something like that. Like something goofy like that ties into the holiday special. I don't really I couldn't find my notes, so I didn't have a name off the top of my head, but yeah, that would be like a joke film. I would make something holiday related for sure. Maybe something with Swamp Yetis. What about Six Flags Fright Fest? So I did talk a little bit about Fright Fest. I think it's exciting. I think it's going to really change the way Horror Nights moves in the future. And I don't think it's going to necessarily I know some people are really more excited for it than Horror Nights because of the IPs, and that is totally fair. If you like this more than the IPs, all more power to you. I don't think it's going to shut down Horror Nights. But I do think it's something that is curious in the future. If you have this competitor in terms of IPs that's getting a lot of attention. Now it's whether the houses are good and whether the houses are well made and do justice to the IPs. That's the question. But also, a lot of those IPs were used by Horror Nights. Trick or Treat and Stranger Things being notably known, and Saw too. They did a house for Saw. Yeah, I think it's cool. I'm not gonna. I won't be able to visit any of them, but I'm gonna stay tuned. I'm gonna stay tuned into what they have. What kind of merch do they make for Otis? My theory thinking it'd be like if they were to put it on the official key art, like the pin or the T-shirt or the poster, like whatever. Like my guess is Otis will be the backdrop for all the houses. Like they always do a poster or a T-shirt for Quiet Place, Monstros, Goblin's Feast, blah blah blah. They're gonna put all that and then it would be in the background. So that's my thought. I don't think they'll make merch Like, I don't think they're gonna, as cool as it would be, I don't think they're gonna make like a model, like a mini model or like a little statuette of Otis, although I would pay good money for that. You know, they're talking about toys. That was just something that came off the top of my head. It wasn't even like, that was just it was just one of those things that I thought about when I was writing down, like, when I like thought like mental notes of what I could do for a Slaughter Cinema holiday special. Hello, I'm not excited for Ghostbusters Frozen Empire because the Ghostbusters movies are not even scary, and that's fair. And I respect your opinion. I'm excited for it, but I know a lot of people aren't for this reason, or they just don't really care for the movie. So it's totally understandable. Sorry to hear that. But you know, there are 9 or 7 other houses available for you, so you can find some other houses to be hyped about. And definitely, I think there are going to be some scary houses this year. I don't think they're all going to be comedy houses. Maybe Otis will be all the annual pass holder stuff now. My thinking is this, or I think they're going to go hard with either Slaughter Cinema or Major Suites for annual pass holder merch. Last year, they went hard for Dueling Dragons because they knew the fans were going to be all over it. I would not be surprised if we see Slaughter Cinema pass holder merch because they know the fans love Slaughter Cinema, and they know they pay good money for Slaughter Cinema merch, whether that's a pin, a shirt, a magnet, whatever variety of merch they make. So I think that'd be kind of cool. I either think I might go to Dallas Six Flags for Fright Fest or San Antonio SeaWorld for Hallow Scream, right? It would have to be Hallow Scream, yeah. That's awesome. You'd have to let me know how the Fright Fest goes. I don't know exactly what properties are going where. I'm guessing 1 or 2 of the big IPs are going to appear there. I don't know how they're being distributed this year. But Hallow Scream is definitely a good time all around. From what I've heard, you know, I've been to the Orlando one. I've heard Williamsburg Hallow Scream is very good, and also Tampa, right? So like I've heard Hallow Scream is fun all around. So yeah, if you're exciting for you, and it's cool to get into more haunts that are not just Horror Nights. From Singapore, they announced Netflix Sweet Home as a house. I did see this. I'm not very familiar with the series, but cool that they're really partnering with Netflix. Obviously, Netflix has got their hands everywhere. They got their hands with a little bit of Horror Nights. They got their hands with a little bit of Six Flags. So Netflix seems to be up and open for everybody. Some talk about Frozen Empire. Okay, I'm gonna pop the screen away. So yeah, that's kind of our little round of HHN news. I know we didn't really talk a lot about Dark Universe. We can talk about that if y'all would like to talk about Dark Universe, although it's not really news. I kind of had it as a bookmark. I wanted to talk about Ghostbusters. I want to talk about Monstros and maybe some of the potential scare zones. But you know, if we had time for Dark Universe, or if Dark Universe, if we kind of ran out of time early, I would have talked about Dark Universe. So we can still talk about it a little bit, answer some questions about Dark Universe. But I did do a full video on Dark Universe, so I said a lot of what I wanted to say in that video. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any other things. But yeah, let's just do a little bit of chats and then we can call it a night. I don't want to take too much of y'all's time up. Try to keep these streams a little under 2 hours, depending on obviously what we have to talk about. The new trailer for the history of Universal Monsters. Really, I've not seen that. I'll have to check that out. I hope you get someday to see some of the haunts up in New England. I feel like we've talked about New England haunts before, but yes, 100%. I would love to see some New England haunts, more haunts outside of Florida. If I can make it, I mean, it might have to be like a road trip thing one of these years. Do a road trip of a bunch of haunts and parks and stuff. I saw Frozen Empire, and at the time they had a Slimer Icy, and I got it. It was really good. Funny enough, we were talking about a potential for an Ecto Cooler slushie at Horror Nights, so maybe that would be something they could bring. Really going on the treats. I didn't get that because I didn't see Frozen Empire in theaters, but glad to hear that you liked it. I would like to see something like that at Horror Nights. Wait, if The Weeknd is coming to Hollywood as Dawn FM, is Hollywood going to reuse stuff from the Weeknd house in Universal Singapore? I don't know, because I don't think they really cross over like that, because I feel like they're completely different teams. I think it would just be because granted, the Singapore house didn't have a whole lot of Dawn FM, so maybe it's new stuff they would add. Like maybe they would take inspiration from certain scenes, but I don't think they would directly reuse, because even even the After Hours house they had, which was After Hours and Dawn FM, it didn't even really have like a lot of it was inspired, I think, by what we saw in After Hours. Although I need to watch a walkthrough of it. I watched a video of it and then I haven't seen it in a while. I hope they have more non-spicy and more non-alcoholic treats this year. 100%. 100%. I've always been a champion for non-alcoholic stuff at Horror Nights, just because it opens it up to more people. And non-spicy. I think it'd be good too. It's good to have a balance, right? You need stuff, obviously, sweet and spicy. I think it's a good balance, because sweet, obviously, Halloween candy, it's what you associate, but also spicy because it's horror, it's spooky, it's a little more edgy. So having some spicy food is good. But I think they should have some other options. And I think they've had really good savory options that aren't spicy. The Yeti poutine last year was really good. I always will talk about the Yeti poutine. I will never shut up about that Yeti poutine. But the Yeti poutine was amazing last year. That wasn't very spicy. The Hellfire Club, for it having jalapeno in the ingredients somewhere in the bread, really wasn't spicy either. So sometimes they go kind of hard on the spices, but sometimes they don't. And I think they've been realizing that not everybody wants that. Okay, let's see. To me, Dark Universe seems the most promising land out of 5. I honestly think they all have things about them that are so exciting. As someone who just went to Super Nintendo World in February in Hollywood, loved my experience there. Super stoked for that. Celestial Park looks beautiful. How to Train Your Dragon looks like it could be a lot of fun. And Ministry of Magic, I'm excited to see how they close out sort of this chapter of the Wizarding World at Universal. But I can't lie and say I have had the hat on the whole time. I'm excited for Dark Universe the most, obviously, because I love horror, I love the monsters, and I love their version of it. I like their take. I know some people are not a big fan. I'm a big fan of how they're doing the monsters. I think it's cool. It's original. It's neat. So yeah, I'm excited for Dark Universe. I think it really is going to change the game, in terms of the theming. And yeah. Are you surprised that HHN Hollywood got 4 Maze announcements in June? A little bit, but after we saw what happened in Orlando in May, I don't think that's as surprising. Like, I think had it happened first, it would have been like, whoa, it's kind of shocking. Considering 2 of those were by Coastal, and then the 2 originals. I'm sure they saw what Orlando did and was like, oh, this is probably a smart idea. Or they partnered up and they were like, because Orlando, from what I've read, was all planned. Like, it wasn't a surprise. It wasn't whatever from, things that have been said by people who are involved, that it was purposely revealed to be, purposely revealed to be original heavy. So yeah, I think I'm not surprised because of what happened in Orlando with the crazy spooky week we got. I want to meet the monsters in Dark Universe. Yep. Do you think the Ghostbusters theme song will play right before you enter the maze? Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they did, if they put it in the queue. Or maybe right as you're leaving. Like maybe right as you exit. In Orlando, as you exit. In Hollywood, probably as you enter, because that queue is all outside. And they had audio from Chucky outside of the maze too last year, and that's in the same spot. So wouldn't be surprised there. Most excited for Dark Universe? Yep. Glad they already announced all the lands. Yeah, all but one. We've got an official announcement for the Ministry of Magic. We're waiting. But very soon, I'm sure next month we'll get that announced. I'll promise myself I'll stay at the Grand Helios. Me too, man. I'm trying to figure out how to make it work. Finances, are it's going to be an expensive hotel, but it'll probably be worth it because that hotel looks amazing. Is there a reason why they don't do go-go dancers in scare zones? Yeah, because people can't control themselves, especially, involving alcohol and things. And it sucks that it gets to that point where they have to cut stuff because people can't handle themselves and they can't hang. No one who works one of these events should have to be harassed or whatever, any kind of situation. Shouldn't have to deal with none of that. Obviously you're doing your job. It's not something that, especially at Universal, a place that's, very much about trying to be as family friendly as possible, right? So, yeah, that's why. Just keeping it as y'all know most likely what I'm talking about. There's some chats in here and then what I'm talking about. But yeah, Dark Universe is very exciting. I know we're talking a little bit about Epic. Definitely excited to go there. Definitely excited to see what the attractions are in Dark Universe and everywhere, for example. I plan on doing a lot more Epic Universe videos in the coming months as we lead up to the park. Not necessarily like news videos, is more like, what do we call this? Like more like the video essay style that I do with the Dark Universe. I want to do more. And as well as some I want to do a big hype list video once everything gets announced for Epic. I think that'll be a lot of fun doing a video like that. As someone who used to be his character in New Hampshire, the drunk customers are asking, yeah, it's very dangerous, and it's very, especially like Horror Nights, again, trying to be a theme park haunt. You have to maintain a level of security, and there's certain things like that's why they even, that's why I feel like, there's that question about alcohol in the parks and in Horror Nights, and I know that's definitely a debate. Some folks have their very strong opinions on either side of like alcohol should be sold, but I do think it needs to be regulated, and if people are, if people can't control themselves, then we cut things. I mean, it's for the safety of the employees, the team members, the characters, whatever. I think that's the most important thing. Feels weird that family issues supposed to be family friendly. Yeah, I mean, you could say, I think it's definitely because looking at something like Howl-O-Scream, they definitely have more on the Howl-O-Scream is definitely more on the more risque side compared to Horror Nights, especially. But they do say the event is recommended for 13 and up. But it's just, I don't think it's necessarily a family-friendly thing, but I think it's just, I think what I was more saying was the Universal, it's trying to be more accessible and more, you get tons of people coming in here, and you start giving them alcohol sometimes, and they can't handle themselves. So that's what I mean with that. So yeah. So any sort of last minute kind of calls, questions, ideas, conversation topics, we can get into it, and we can end tonight's stream. I thank y'all for coming through again. Always I say that every time, but yeah. Anybody has any last minute questions, thoughts, commentary, we will do that, and then we'll call it. Now, probably do another stream in another 2 weeks. I try to do streams every 2 weeks, maybe a month, depending on what we, now we got news coming in. So it's like, this will be the time to do streams. And I'll say I'm pretty proud of myself. I've been keeping consistent doing streams for the past, across the year. As I said I would. So do you think the last two houses for Orlando will be announced in July and August? I think honestly, just all in July. I think Orlando's going to be done in July, just like last year. I think Hollywood might bleed over into August, but it'll be early August when we get everything. I think July is going to be the big month. But yeah. So I'm trying to think. So I know y'all are in here. I know y'all are, obviously subscribers, and y'all are really, really real ones, and y'all stick around for all the videos, so definitely appreciate that. They said Nintendo video coming soon, and then based on any updates, I plan on doing some lore videos once we get more information on sort of the lore. I did a big lore video last year. I want to do another one this year. That'll be definitely coming, and then obviously some construction. We're starting to get into construction, which is crazy. I'm sure the next coming weeks, we'll see some construction stuff, but more HHN, more park stuff. Want to start moving into some park stuff as well. Because I had a lot of fun making that Dark Universe video. That was a video I'm very, very proud of. Unless Universal's hiding something, seems like everything's set in stone. Yeah, that's kind of why I wanted to talk about the spec map. Not because I think there's a lot of craziness, but I think scare zones are really the biggest mystery right now. And I think after seeing that, we're kind of have an idea of what to expect. And then we can just wait for the announcements. I'm guessing, again, by the end of the month, we'll know what's coming, and it's just a matter of watching it being built as far as scare zones go. But yeah, I think I think I'm going to end it right there. Again, thank y'all for coming through the stream tonight. Sorry if the network was being a little weird earlier. I feel like it's kind of calmed down now because the rain stopped. It was really bad today. And it's been, summer in Florida is what it does. But anyways, thank y'all for coming through. I will see y'all in the next video. Maybe an announcement, probably not an announcement, but something happening early next week. So as always, stay spooky and have a good night, y'all.